Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So today we're going to do a bit of a build guide actually on the Shield Crush Jug that I put a part 1 up the other day of. I pretty much min and maxed the living daylights out of it over the last couple days. And yeah, we're up to a pretty respectable level of damage with everything up and ramped up in maps and everything. And we'll talk about the configuration and everything at, sort of in the next part of the video. Pretty much you would have seen in the B-roll. At this stage, this has dropped. I was actually just farming Maven for lols out of it at one point. I'm at about 480 delve, 500 delve, and just consistently pushing down. It can be made more powerful. Mage Blood would absolutely push it over that level. But I've sort of played around with everything, got it working really well. As far as price-wise for this build, we're looking at the up there's. Now, the implicits in the helm aren't yet perfect, and I'm very well aware of that. Someone will surely point it out. Someone will surely point it out that you don't have everything up in the tree all at once. Well, I haven't got Zerker up in the tree, and also when you play Delve, you do pretty much have everything up in the tree. For anyone who's played Delve, it's pretty gnarly down there, and it's made for characters like this. Now, price-wise, Replica Dream Feather's unique in this, and we'll go through this in the gearing because of the corrupted implicit on it. This was about 7 Exalt, I think. Shield, dirt cheap. Rings, pretty relatively cheap, like 50, 60 chaos a piece. Belt, a little bit more expensive because of the implicit. The implicits on the gloves and the boots, I just say just get the Ambers and the Eater of Worlds crafting mats and just hit them until you get it, and just run maps. The All's Uprising, that one's a bit more expensive because there's none on the market and you'll have to farm it, unfortunately, but they're about 9x. Helm, not so expensive, and then basically Brass Dome is probably 3 Divine, 4 Divine, and that's an unlinked Brass Dome too, I'd say. So, you know, there's a bit of investment, not to mention Bottled Faith. We've also got a pretty good Watcher's Eye with double damage rolled on it, which is a little bit more expensive. We'll just have a look at that. Yeah, they're like 2 or 3 Divine. The Cluster Jewels here, you'd be like 2 to 3 Divine, and then about 1 Divine each. And then everything else in the build after that is relatively straightforward to get and easy enough. Seething Fury, dirt cheap, but we'll talk about that very shortly. But yeah, that's basically just the costings. Let's say like maybe 30 Divine, something like that would get you there. 15 to 30 Divine, and that's like 2 key items that are the most expensive, being the sword and the All's Uprising. But we'll talk about that as we get into the build. Anyway, welcome to the build guide, and let's start talking about this build. Okay, as with always, I actually really like to talk about the tree in particular, and we'll go into the config and where everything's coming from. So, first of all, question I always get, Pantheons, Soul of Arakali, and Soul of Aberrath. This deals with a lot of the bullshit that comes out of Poison Dot, Chaos Dot, everything. Also means you get a lot more life regeneration. As you know, I have like 1000 life regen before that even kicks in, and 1200 after it kicks in. So it's pretty good on that front. Some of the other notable stats is obviously 11 million DPS, including Impale. We have 100% PAL, and I'll outline where all the Impale is coming from in this guide as well in the gearing section. Hit pool is 157,000. And, you know, 400 plus thousand for each elemental. Chaos is really our overall enemy here, but in Delve it's not so bad than it is everywhere else. And mean to say, like, the only things you really struggle on are, like, Uber bosses with this. Now, your life regen per second, 1000. Life leech, 1200. I'll explain how I got that as well. As we go down, we have almost max block, 180,000 armor. This can be better, and that's basically with a Mage Blood and Basalt Flask, but then you'd have to switch out Bottled Faith, and don't really like that. And then we have overcap reses to about 79 and 80%, and 106% move speed because we're running Rage, and we get 55 Rage. We only have 4,000 life. We only need 4,000 life because we have so many layers of damage reduction. It's ridiculous. So anyway, talking through the configs, so the bandits, we're going to kill them all, as always kill them all. 2 points is better than the attributes that you get from taking any individual bandit. Power charges. This is coming from our blue nightmare that's here, and this triggers off of this elemental resist node here. So this gives me 50% increase, 15% increased chance to get a power charge on kill, and because this is a delve-centric character, we're always going to be killing shit, so we generate that really easily. Frenzy charges. This is literally coming off of our where is it? This is coming off Blood Rage, which is on cast and damage taken, so you don't even need to think about it, just cast, it just does it for you, so it's pretty stupid proof. Endurance charges, this is coming off the tree on the Ascendancy for unflinching, so this is one of the advantages of Jugs, is having, you know, always up endurance charges. So we don't need to run anything like Relic Ashes, Impatience, or whatever to get max charges, we just generate it natively out of the tree and skills. Are you focused? Yes. And so focus has an 8-second cooldown and 4 seconds up. And where our focus is coming from is actually from the gloves. And this is increasing my attack and cast speed by 46% in the roll that I've got. You can get different rolls, but this is pretty good for getting your damage up pretty significantly. And if we have a look at what happens when you actually take that off, you lose like 1.5 mil damage. Could you run different gloves? That means absolutely you could run completely different gloves, rage generation gloves or whatever, entirely up to you. And you could switch out rage. There's different ways to play this build. I've went with this route because this works for me. If this doesn't work for you, then there's always a different way to play a build. Do I have Onslaught? Yes, and I basically simplistically have Onslaught boots. So as we kill, we got 12% chance to generate Onslaught. So that's where that's coming from. Fortified. Now, before you get the sword, you'll need to take the fortified nodes down in, where are you? Here, which means you'll have to pull 5 points from elsewhere in your tree. Where you do that just depends on where you want to reduce your damage by at the end of the day. You know, entirely up to you. It could be survivability or damage that you take down. You can pull back these armor nodes. Anything, you can do anything you want with it. Actually, we want that. No, I don't really need to carry. You could pull down these nodes here. It's up to you. But currently where my fortify is actually coming from is my replica Dream Feather. And if I have a look at the price of this sword, I don't even know if there's any others. There's one other up and it's 5 divine. So melee hits have 11% chance to fortify. And because we hit so fast, like just about 6 point something to 7 APS or attacks per second, we always have Fortify up, and it's free, and it's 20 stacks of fortification, so you don't have to muck around with anything. You don't have to have nodes fortify, you don't have whatever, you just have non-stop fortify, which is like a free extra skill. It doesn't give you any extra damage, but it gives you a huge level of defense in the build, and that's where that's coming from. Now, Defiance, funnily enough, I played around with the skills, and we actually used the cheapest Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame jewels in the game, being Defy Pain, which comes off the Zerker Ascendancy, and this ramps up your armor as you get hit, and up to 10 stacks, and then once you get the 10 stacks, it sort of resets, and then you go from there, but it also pushes your leech up pretty significantly as well. So, you know, if we went middle ground and just went like 5 stacks of Defiance, right, you know, we still get a good ramp up to 10.2 mil DPS, and we still get a good amount of leech. But realistically, you're probably going to have, you know, 5 to 8 stacks around abouts. Still huge amounts of armor and everything else. And because this uses Replica Dream Feather, your damage is scaled off of your armor. And because that increases your armor, your damage goes up progressively. As you take more damage, you actually get stronger with this build, which is one of the reasons why it's so much fun and why it just one-taps mobs and maps. Like, basically, Archnem means fucking nothing to this build. GGG would need to come up with a harder league mechanic to make this build not work, or make Delve harder again. But it's just, as it gets tankier, the stronger it gets, the more leech it has, the more survivability it gets. And, you know, there you go, you know. Turning a frown upside down sort of scenario. Okay, so back to what we were doing. So do you have a flask active? Yes. Rage, how do we generate it? Pretty simple with this build. We basically just have anomalous rage. And the reason why we have anomalous rage is once you get to 20 rage, you get an additional 10% attack speed. Some people say, oh, that's not significant. Any attack speed you can get into this build is significant because it sort of needs it. So we're leeching, we do more damage with leeching. Not a lot, but you know, it's there. We have it built into everything. Have you been hit recently? Well, we usually play Delve with this on maps or bosses. We're always getting hit. And because it's pretty much max block, and the way that we get glancing blows is that actually comes off of the shield. So we run an Emperor's Vigilance, and I'll talk about that when we get into gearing. But that basically gets me to pretty much max block. So 60% spell block, 75% attack block. So we're always blocking. And then if we stop taking dot recently, we go up to 1200 life regeneration per second. And if I'm against dot, then my chaos resistance goes up as well. So with the 40% damage over time roll, and that's coming from Soul of Arakali. So if dot hits me, or should hit me, I get stronger again, and my health pool goes up again. Basically, effective health becomes 236, and I become even tankier again. Again, just synergizing on, we start off weaker, and then we basically, we do the Escanor effect out of 7 Deadly Sins, and as we take more damage and as we power up, we get stronger and stronger and stronger, and we get bigger. So other things, maximum effect, we always assume to have maximum effect, like, you know, whatever. Someone will go, oh, that's an inflator. Pff, fuck off, get out of my channel. Sand stance you're going to do in mapping. Blood stance you're going to do when you're hitting bosses. In particular in Delve, I'm always in blood stance. Guardian and Pinnacle damage. Guardian and Pinnacle bosses, yes. And if we were doing Ubers, we've only get to like 3 mil. But this build isn't really made for Ubers, it's made for Delve. So if you take it to Ubers, the things you'll struggle on are where you're dealing with chaos. But it'll still do well against Ubers. I'll be honest with you, I haven't really tried it on Ubers because I don't really play Ubers. But you know, if you want to try it, you could probably get it there with Mage Blood and stuff like that and more investment. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm enjoying the build for what it is. And I might go for a Mage Blood, but it's not going to be a video that I put up and be like, hey, check out my build guide with a Mage Blood, because that'd just be joking at that point. That's ridiculous. So moving down from there, we do have Brittle Ground. Where Brittle comes from is actually from my boot implicit. So drops Brittle Ground while moving, lasts 4 seconds. So if you're on a boss, you pretty much just want to get right on top of them and be like, oi, yo, bro. And then just give them a good old shield pounding. And that will get your brittle ground up and give you maximum crit. And it actually does push crit up to 100% pretty efficiently. And then beyond that, the consecrated ground, consecrated ground that we both stand on and the enemy stands on is actually coming from Bottled Faith. Because I went, why not? If you didn't have a Bottled Faith flask, then you could switch this out and use a Basalt flask, and that's still going to give you respectable amounts of damage, and it's actually going to push your survivability even further up. But at this point, we're at 400 and something thousand, and like, at what point do you just go, that's probably enough survivability? Yeah, I want a little more damage to give up a little bit of survivability. But yeah, and that's why I always switch out flasks as a situational. So Quartz for Delve, Amethyst for when I'm taking a boss, and if Delve's getting too hard, then we switch out the Bottled Faith, drop damage, and get more tanky, and then we can deal with that. But that's the beauty of understanding flask setups and things like that. Anyway, that's basically the overview of the build, so we're going to crack into the rest of the sections. We're going to look at gearing next. Okay, so gearing on this build. Replica Dream Feather, most important item that you're going to get. The other advantage with this one is, as I said, this has a corrupted implicit for melee hits, fortify on hit. The way that this works is for every 450 armor that you stack, you get 1% increased damage. It gives you attack speed, it gives you flat armor, it gives you accuracy, which on the jug synergizes really well because of this node here. Undeniable, so every 500 accuracy every 150 accuracy you get an additional 1% attack speed. So that's why this is a really good item for jugs right now, and surprisingly, you know, I'm surprised more people aren't playing this. Pretty much if you're going to play a melee build, just run a Replica Dream Feather. Helm, we're running Burgeonet, and we have the 40% increased shield crush damage roll on it. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not you have the damage roll or speed roll. It ends up being about the same, though it just depends on if you want to hit fast or if you want to hit harder. That's really the difference. The damage sort of levels out. The implicits I'm still working on this one. but it'll be around this, or you know, something similar that really amps up damage. Life, regeneration rate, resistances, and you want a shitload of armor because it synergizes with your boots. My All's Uprising is the next item. I've got infused flesh, so as I take damage, I recoup 18% of that damage as life, which is another source of damage reduction. This is a pride roll, so it means that pride reserves 0 mana, and that means we can run more auras. So in this case, we run Defiance Banner, and we leveled up Vitality to get my life regeneration up and my armor through the roof. The next thing, Emperor's Vigilance. We obviously run the shield because it's crazy good, but it gives you Glancing Blows, Spell Block built into the shield, and the energy shield and armor is really important. So it's got a lot of armor, which is great, but the energy shield's even better because it synergizes with 2 particular nodes on the tree, one being this one here, which gives you 1% increased crit multi per 10 energy shield on the shield. So you get more crit multi, and then also Seething Fury, which it does exactly the same effect and crit chance, and that's going to give you a lot more damage, in fact, a significant amount more damage. Then in the chest, I'm just running a Brass Dome. This is just a 5 red, 1 green, really easy to get. I 6-link this myself. You can get better Brass Domes than this, but you know, about 3% overcapped is fine considering the price. This also makes you crit strike immune, so you can no longer take critical strike damage, so go crazy and do as many crit multi maps as you want. It'll do nothing to this build, which is one of the reasons why it's so tanky. Now, rings-wise, Amethyst Ring with a lot of Chaos Res, Accuracy, Life, and Intelligence, so we don't have to worry about sort of being dumb. And the other ring, I've got a Mirror Ring from Kalandra, which has 160 life, a lot of energy, mana regen, even though we have mana leech. The regen is really nice to have, and an absolute metric ton of cold res. The lightning damage attacks against me do absolutely nothing, so you don't need to worry about that. Gloves, as I said before, these gloves, they have the focus roll for attack speed. The other thing is a lot of life, fire res, armor, flat attack speed, another implicit for attack speed, and 10% impale. Implicit roll on that too, which is I'm pretty sure it's a grand roll, greater Eater of the Worlds, this gets you up to 100% impale on the dot, which is a significant amount of damage. So yeah, pretty easy to get actually. You just need to run T16 maps with Searing and Eater of Worlds on it, and you'll eventually just get to that point natively as you craft on it. These gloves are actually really cheap. Like you might pay like 30-40 chaos for them. It's just how you craft them up. It's what matters. Next is the magnet. In mine, I actually have Determination, has increased aura effect roll on my implicits, just corrupted. But the advantage here, flash charges generate at 50% increased rate, which is significant because that also affects things like Bottle of Faith and Lion's Roar, which means you have a pretty high flask uptime. All resist, it also gives you chance for double damage and chance for triple damage, which is pretty significant. This is actually a big chunk of damage on the tree. If we were to take this belt off, you'd lose a lot of damage. It's actually responsible for about 2 million damage. Go figure, a belt could be so damn powerful. When I switch to Mage Blood, I'm going to have to really balance it more so around stacking more armor, and that should hopefully push up the damage to compensate for this. And then finally, boots. You do need the implicits, and these are Eater of Worlds, Grand, and Grand Searing Exarch. And I just crafted these myself from farming. So 40% increased armor from equipped helmet and gloves, which is why you want such high armor on your gloves and your helmet. And then drops Burial Ground, which maxes out your crit to 100%. And then this is actually a fractured set of boots, and then I just crafted these with pristine fossils until I got the right roll, and I got all over 40s, which is crazy, and then Onslaught. So I actually self-crafted these boots, they don't exist in the league at all. Because, yeah, they are absolutely ridiculous, but they're very easy to get, and if people want me to put videos up about how I craft some of these items, and I'm not a great crafter, I just know what I'm looking for. And then, because I don't have Corrupted Blood in the build, I just couldn't fit it in anymore. I've also got an Eternal Life Flask with charges gained when when crit striking, because we do 100% crit strike, we always generate more charges. And then that gives me immunity to bleeding and corrupted blood for 10 seconds, which is really useful when it pops. The Quicksilver Flask, I have an armor during flask effect roll. I also have the same effect on my Quartz Flask that I use in Delve as well. And that's just so I can sustain more armor. Lion's Roar, really good flask, has knockback, does huge amounts of damage increase. This build really takes advantage of flasks. My Diamond Flask, I have charges when I get hit by the enemy, which is then buffed again by the Magnate Belt, and 15% increased attack speed, just to buff my damage, and then obviously a Bottled Faith is my last flask. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the gearing. Okay, so gem setups. So, Helm, Enduring Cry, Anomalous Assassin's Mark. This just increases your damage, so worth having. We've also got Mark on Hit, so we don't have to worry about mucking around with marks. I actually need to 20% this to up the damage even more. We have Blood and Sand, really useful to switch between, you know, smashing bosses and whatever. So, yeah, worth having in the build. And then in the shield, Divergent Pride. This does -2% physical damage reduction to enemies in the vicinity, which is really useful, and it's pretty cheap too. Vitality is only at level 14, because that's what I can sustain with my mana pool. Determination, if you can get a different roll determination, do it, but normal determination is fine. And then in the gloves, I've got a level 11 Blood Rage, level 18 Molten Shell, and level 15 Cast and Damage Taken. That's about comfortable based on how much damage I take. And then in my chest, I've got Divergent Shield Crush, and the reason why we use Divergent is it actually gives you 20% increased crit multi per 1% of quality. Or, you know, in total, 1% per quality. Divergent Multi-Strike, which eventually I'll switch to Awaken Multi-Strike. I don't currently have that in the tree, but it'll just push the damage close to like 12 million DPS idle with everything up. Anomalous Blood Rage, as I said, with a 20% roll on this, an Anomalous, you get 10% attack speed with 20 Rage in the bank, which is pretty easy to generate as you're ramping maps and delve and bosses and stuff like that. I've got just normal Impale. No other Impales worth having in this, just normal Impale's fine, and that's mainly because of the Impale effect, because we do max Impale. We don't need to like ramp Impale out of this or anything like that. The Impale effect is actually more important than having more Impale, because over 100% does nothing. Then Awaken Melee Physical Damage Support. I'm just leveling this up. As I get this to level 5, damage will go up even more. And Awaken Brutality. I've got a level 5. I think I got it for like 1 divine, 1 point something divine. And actually, that also means that in the tree, enemies are crushed, which doesn't really do anything. But yeah, whatever. Anyway. Then in the gloves, I've got Leap Slam, I've got Ancestral War Chief and multiple totems, and Phantasmal Ancestral Protector. And the reason why I got Phantasmal is it does 20% increased Ancestor Totem buff effect, which gives you more attack speed, which amps up the damage by like 200,000 to 300,000, which is pretty significant. Like, well, not significant, but you know, we're talking just huge fucking numbers at this stage. But it works. It works really well. And then in our boots, we have Defiance Banner, Berserk, which if we tap on Berserk, by the way, and I haven't shown you guys, I've got it switched off in this tree because obviously that would be a distorter. It goes up to 16 mil DPS when you need it. So, you know, it's there. Anomalous Reckoning, which also debilitates enemies for 1 second when you hit. And because I'm always blocking, you're always debilitating enemies around you. I'm not entirely sure what that does. It has some effect, but it's a better use for that skill, I guess. And then just level 20 Precision, which I actually need to corrupt and see if I can get 21. And this is just going to amp up your crit, your accuracy, get everything over. Well, it gives you attack speed, and it's going to get you over the accuracy on hit, because this character has no issues with 100% chance to hit enemies. So you're never missing hits. Missing can be really bad with builds. But that's it for the gem setups. Pretty straightforward stuff, nothing crazy. Okay, this is where I've done the most amount of work this league, sitting in the tree. So I've sort of optimized the living fuck out of this tree, and we're only at like level 94, so there's still 6 points of space that this can move around to get it close to 15 to 20 mil, whatever, DPS, or you can put it in more survivability. But at this stage, actually, that's better placed down there for now. I'm glad that I'm looking at this now. get more life out of that. I don't know what I was doing. Anyway, so pretty much we come down here, we pick up all these nodes, we just pick up the strength nodes here. And then we're going to come across and we're going to grab Diamond Skin because that synergizes with Blue Nightmare. And then we're going to grab Spiked Bulwark, which nobody uses in any build, but we use in this build because this gets our armor through the roof. Then we're going to grab Versatility, Heart of the Warrior, come down. We'll want to pick up this dual socket node here, and I've got Seething Fury seated in here, and then up to Constitution. And then we'll come back down, we'll grab this Dex node here, and then up to the Reservation Efficiency node. You can grab Bannerman, but we do need the nodes to sort of spread around the tree a bit better. So not exactly the best use of a point. Entirely up to you what you want to do with that. And then we come up and grab Solar Steel, Armor Mastery with Determination, Mana Efficiency, because we need to be able to get that mana efficient. And then we come across, we pick up Merciless Skewering, which is significant. This is where a lot of the Impale comes from in this build, an Impale effect. It's just a really good node. And then we come across, we grab Defiance. Now we want to pick up Defenses with Shield because the more shield armor we stack, the more damage we do with Replica Dream Feather. Masters the Arena, and then all the way across to Art of the Gladiator. And then back down, we grab Golem's Blood. We've got a Watcher's Iron here with life gain on hit with Vitality and chance to do double damage with Pride. If you can get multiple Impales on enemies, then that's going to amp the damage up by another mil, but it's really expensive and I am cheap. So yeah, we have that. And then we come up and get Revelry, which I've never seen used on builds, but it's actually a really good node. The reason why we need it is mana sustain. It's actually quite hard to sustain the mana without having the second ring, without a non-challenge skills have total negative mana. But this node gets over that hurdle, so you'll need this. And then come down, grab Retaliation, and then also Shield Mastery, so 1% of critical strike multiplier for 10 energy shield on shield. And then we'll come back up, we'll come down, and grab these dismembering nodes here for more crit and crit multi. We'll talk about clusters last. And then we come up and grab Bloodless. We come up and grab Aggressive Bastion and also the attack damage roll per 75 armor. This is going to give you a pretty good damage buff. Then we'll get the Armor Mastery node, or Juggernaut node here, sorry. Obviously we'll seek the Blue Nightmare in. Barbarism. We're going to get Hearty, and this is going to get our regeneration rate up because we don't want to have to use this bloody Untiring node. And I tried, I just couldn't get past. You really do need Unstoppable for Delve. So anyway, we get this node here, Hearty, and also 50 maximum life. We don't want to take the reduced life recovery. It might give us more overall life, but it reduces our regeneration rate, and that's pretty shit. And then we come up and get Disemboweling, sorry. And we go around the outer to pick up more crit strike chance and multi. And then finally we grab this node up here and we're going to put a Replica's Conqueror's Efficiency. This is going to drop our mana cost down so it's more sustainable. Now, the biggie here, after you've gotten all these nodes in, then we're going to deal with the cluster jewels. So you'll come down, pick up this cluster jewel here, and you want a cluster jewel with Feel the Fight, Martial Prowess, and Prodigious Defense. And every single node and stat, or every single stat in this node, increases our defense, and I actually have Chaos Res on this as well, so these small nodes are giving me Chaos Res. Now, for the medium clusters, we're going to run Pressure Points and Precise Retaliation on one, and Basics of Pain and Pressure Points on the other. This is going to give you double damage, increased crit strike chance, and some crit multi on the shield, because we have block, so we're going to synergize with that. And then finally, we run Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh, and these are actually like 30 chaos each. If you're wondering, you're like, oh, you're running Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh, that's expensive. Ha! No, they're the cheap ones, because this is much, much cheaper than those builds. So, yeah, that's pretty much how we get through the tree. Now, Ascendancy-wise, we're pretty much going to pick up... you're going to go for Unflinching first, because seriously, it's just one of the best nodes. You go for Undeniable, and then you go for Unbreakable, which is going to get your defenses up as your third option, or third choice, and then Unstoppable lastly, and that means you can't be slowed down by anything. It means basically Maven can't slow you down, Delve can't slow you down, bosses can't slow you down. You just walk through the game and give zero fucks about what it has to throw at you, because you're a jug and you shouldn't have to worry about shit like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the skill tree. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the build. Yeah, super tanky, really good. At the start, you would have seen the B-roll. It pretty much just smashes its way through everything. I'm rolling around at like 400 to 500 delve right now, and I'm just consistently pushing down. Improvements are Mage Blood, Awaken Multi-Strike, and then setting up Flask with Mage Blood to max out armor completely. That's going to get me into like the maybe 400,000, 500,000 armor mark and just amp my damage up off of that. And then pretty much that's it for the build. There are some minor things like rings could be a little more perfect, gloves could be a little better. Pretty much everything else is straightforward. It is what it is. Anyway, if you enjoy this build, like and sub, and also follow the Twitch. I've been streaming over there more often. And jump in now and again if you want and see what I'm up to. I'm mainly going to be delving. We're going to get back to Crystal King sort of killing, and I'll be working on a delve guide as well, but I thought I'd get this video out first because I wanted to just put out an update for this build. I'm probably not going to put out another update video for this build because this is pretty definitively almost basically done completely. Super tanky, collapsed the end game. Pretty much marginalizes everything. I haven't tried it with other skills yet. I'm really keen to try it with other skills, so I don't know. I might switch out skills and see what happens. Maybe there's some other really cool combinations we can make of this build. Maybe chain hook, because I know everybody wants me to play fucking chain hook. Anyway, until next time, have a good one, and bye.